Hello and welcome to Weekly Fix. I'm your co-host Zane, and joined with me is my co-host Jacob, who is always such a pleasure to have on the show, and so glad that we're doing this podcast together. This week, we have a little bit of a switch up for you guys. We generally have a breakdown or a movie, or we talk about just what recently came out. Now, we definitely do have some news that we are going to talk about, but we're going to switch it up with a ranking this week. We've had success with that in the past. We did our top 5 car movie rankings. We've done our top 5 Christmas movies. And today, we're going to do our top 5 Pixar films. Now, this is a very different list than maybe the content you guys are used to, but we've been doing a lot of animation. It's a super high quality film list, and we were just kind of curious if we could break it down and kind of see what we were thinking along the lines of Pixar's. I'm all in the realm of Pixar's with my daughter watching and loving all of Pixar, so we're super excited to get into that. Before we do, Jacob, I want to check in on you. How was your week?
It was great, man. Like we've talked a lot recently about, I know you've kind of gotten in a lot more into X-Men 97, which we're going to be talking about probably next week with that first season coming to a close, and I'm going to try to grind it out and catch back up. But I've been so busy with so much stuff. As you guys know, I'm actually in the process of moving, and we're getting closer and closer to that day coming. So lots of craziness and hecticness going on. So I haven't got to watch a whole lot of new stuff. But to be fair, we really haven't had a whole lot of, interesting new stuff going on. We're kind of in a little bit of a lull, which is kind of nice sometimes when you're like me and you're behind on stuff like X-Men 97. It gives you a little bit of a chance to catch up. But overall, been a great week. But I am very excited to talk about our top 5 Pixar movies.
Yeah, and we were talking right before the show. I had a difficulty putting this list together. When I saw the list, I was like, man, picking 5, and maybe this is because they're on in my house a good chunk of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie adores watching them. I am always super excited when we are not putting some mindless TV show on, but actually a good movie. So anytime Pixar comes on in my house, it's a fun time for me because we actually get to watch a movie. And that's one of the best things about Pixar is the movies are not just children movies. They're good,
100%.
solid movies. And that's one of the reasons some of these maybe aren't on my list that you may think they are is because, hey, they don't pander to the adult audience enough, or they don't pander to the children's audience enough. So a good movie is something that entertains me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna break this down 5 through 1. We'll start with the our outside the top 5. And then we're going to give a runner up just before we go into it, just to make sure, set the stage. Let's see. So I guess so. Technically we're doing a 6, but just we're not going to talk about number 6 much. So Jacob, what's your runner up for this list?
Well, before we get into this, I believe you can post the links on our description of the episode, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so if you guys want to see the pool of movies that we did select from, so if you're thinking why didn't you pick this one? There might be one that wasn't on that list. I'm not for sure if that list was 100% of all the Pixar movies. It definitely could have been. But if you guys wanted to see the list that we definitely had to choose from, Zane can link that down in the description so you guys can also look at the list that we did. But starting off at my honorable mention, and like Zane said, he had a hard time picking his movies. I actually had an extremely easy time picking my movies. As far as once I got to my top 5, I did have a little bit of a harder time actually, putting them 1 through 5, but I knew my top 5 was pretty easy. So my honorable mention is kind of a movie that was well outside of my top 5, but still one that I really enjoyed, and that is Onward.
Okay, Onward is a very fun movie. Man, a great runner-up. This actually did not make the cut for my top 12.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Onward was. Oh, no, it did. Okay, it just. I'm just checking the list again. Okay, yeah, it did. Onward was significantly better on my second viewing than my first.
Okay.
I got a lot more of the story and really enjoyed it a lot more the second time through than I did the first time.
I just loved I guess you would say maybe the fantasy aspect of that movie. I loved all the little details that it had. I don't know, something about the world really caught my eye. I just loved everything that they did with it. So it definitely was a great movie. Like I said, it definitely is not even really even close to my top 5. But when we decided we were going to do an honorable mention of the other movies, there was a few that definitely competed for an honorable mention with Onward. But just something about that movie, every time I've watched it and every time it's on, I always catch myself like really glued to it. So I kind of use that as like, why would I put it there? And it's just because I actually do enjoy watching it. Like I said, I love the little fantasy aspect of it. I think it's just a really great story. I think it's got a great message behind it and all that stuff. So that is why it made my honorable mention, I guess, coming in at number 6.
And for my honorable mention, maybe the best movie on this list, but just not for me, and that is Coco. Coco is a super good movie. It's filled with heart. I cried the first time I watched it. I cried the second time I watched it. And I do absolutely love Coco, and it broke my heart to not put it in the top 10, the top 5. But unfortunately, there's just a lot more nostalgia and maybe some better messaging in the other movies that I like. The other thing that hurt Coco is with the imagery of death and skeletons and some of the more scary. My 3-year-old has not been able to see it yet, so she hasn't been able to like it. The music is spectacular.
It is.
It's a great film, and no knock to Coco. It literally almost knocked number 5 off, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, Coco right outside the top 5 for me with a runner-up.
Oh, absolutely great movie. I know when I first watched it, me and my wife watched it together, and she cried during it. So I think it is a great movie. I love the music in it. I think that's one thing you kind of do have to take into consideration, especially with like these Disney animation movies, you know, Pixar and stuff like that. You have to consider the music because, I mean, some of them are like cultural phenomenons, right? I mean, you hear people singing these songs all the time. So I can't fault you with that one. It definitely,
I'm pretty sure it won an Oscar for best original song.
I think it might have, because it's very memorable.
Remember Me.
Yeah. But you know, it's one of those movies that I really enjoyed, but I'm gonna be honest, I think it would have probably been on the lower end if we were to go through this entire list that we picked from. I think it might have been a little bit on the lower end. I don't think it would have maybe been in my top 10. And I will go ahead and preface, I did try to, with my list, not pick multiple of the same series of movies. So like Toy Story, there's 4 of those movies. I tried to just pick my favorite Toy Story if it made my top 5. Same with like The Incredibles, there's 2 of those. So I had to pick between one or the other. But if I were to really break down this list from top to bottom, a lot of those movies would have come in ahead of Coco, but that's not saying it's not a good movie. I still really did enjoy it, and I can totally see why you do have it at your number 6.
Yeah, and for this list, I mean, we got 19 bangers on here.
Like, yes.
Like there's only a few misses, which will, you know, I have some that I do not like. But for the most part, I think it's pretty much a very good track record, one of the best in the industry.
For sure. I think, like you said, when you get to these level of movies, you really have to nitpick things, and you really have to, you know, start picking some personal preferences. Yeah, because they are so good.
Yeah, so when everything's rated a 9 or a 10, it's like, okay,
exactly.
Well, my personal preference, and you know, is this one's better.
And it can come down to just you like the animation style better, or you like how bright this movie was and the colors they used. I mean, that's how nitpicky you sometimes have to be when you're picking between these great movies.
Oh yeah, but without further ado, all right, let's go ahead and see. I think our lists are going to be quite a bit different, I'm going to be honest, but
I think so too.
What's number 5 for you?
So number 5 for me is WALL-E. I don't know why, but I just absolutely adore this movie. I think, you know, WALL-E is such a favorite character of mine. I just, you know, I feel so bad for him. You know, he's just doing his job. He's all alone in this world on Earth, just trying to restore Earth to its former glory. He just goes out, does his job every day, comes back to his house. And maybe the little bit of the collector in me really appreciates WALL-E, because, you know, he has all his little collection of all his little knickknacks and things that he finds while out on the job. So I really like WALL-E. I think the story's great. I just love the world of WALL-E as well. I think it's really cool when you do get up in outer space and you're on the ship and all that stuff. I just love everything about it. It's one of those things. I'm very prone to say things are higher ranked on my list when they are visually appealing to me. And Wall-E is very visually appealing to me. I love the colors that they use when you do get up in outer space. Now, obviously on Earth, it's a little gloom and brown because they've just destroyed the Earth. But when you do get out in outer space, I think it's got a lot of really great scenes and a lot of fun colors. I like the characters. I love Eve. I love Mo. I just love Wall-E. It's definitely one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, dude,
I
it
don't know if
is.
that was a very good.
No, that's bad. Coming off a strep throat, give me a break.
Right.
But Wally is awesome. And the first time, like Onward, I didn't like Wally. Now maybe this is because my brother told me it was bad. He was watching it with me, and he said it was bad.
Just add a little bit
But
of that sour fruit in there.
yeah, when you watch something with somebody who thinks something's bad, it
Yeah,
can
it
kind of rub
automatically.
off on you,
Yep, 100%.
lower that enjoyment rating. So I have a few of those movies where my company made it less enjoyable for me. And Wally was one of those for initial, but I've grown to love Wally. I do find him adorable. I find the story very fun, and also it's got a good messaging. Don't destroy the earth.
Yeah,
Also don't let technology ruin what's important in life. And
which is
just sit
really
on our phones.
appropriate for the age we live in, right? I mean, I think Wally is a prime example of what ultimately could happen on Earth if we don't really start paying attention. I mean, they have their special chair and their computers and all that stuff. I mean, we basically are getting to that point with our phones. So I think it's really kind of funny how, you hear a lot of times people talk about how like these movies kind of like predict the future. Some of them are pretty accurate sometimes, and I feel like Wally is kind of one of those movies that you're like, if we continue down the path we're on, it's not, it's not like out of the ordinary that this could happen.
Yeah, no, it's a scary thought, but I think some people would be very happy living in that world. I am
I
not
think
one
you're
of
right.
those people. But it is intrinsic. It is. You touched on it. It's a beautiful film, and I think that's a good number five. As you may find out, I might approve, but for my number five, sneaking the fifth spot over Coco is Monsters Inc. Um, I adore Monsters Inc. I watched Monsters Inc. It came out when I was 6, and I watched Monsters Inc. so many times. It's an incredible story. It's heartfelt. You know, going against the grain to make sure that the right thing is done. And when you see injustice, you don't turn a blind eye. You don't do what's easy. You stand up and you do what's right. And I think Monsters Inc. is just incredible. It's fun, visually pleasing, the world, the monsters. Sometimes there's a better way to do things. Everyone thought the scaring was the way, but actually laughter.
Yeah.
Laughter was just as effective, and you don't have to hurt anybody through doing it. And that it's just a fun movie, and I love watching Monsters Inc. Charlie is actually right now watching Monsters at Work, which is a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
series. She loves it. She's into the monsters. She calls them her sea monsters, which I'm not sure why. Can we watch sea monsters? But I really really like Monsters Inc. and every scene in it. I just don't think there's a miss. The voice acting is super good.
It is.
Um, it's not no real great songs. It's missing a soundtrack.
It is. But
Maybe one of the reasons it's not as high. But it's just a really really good heartfelt movie with fun characters, fun designs, and just a great time. If I was choosing to put on a movie, this is for Charlie. This one's always up there. I would always be super thrilled for Monsters Inc. to be on.
I think that's a great one. I love Monsters Inc. I think it's perfect way you described it. It's such a fun movie. One of those movies that you can really love the characters in, which is a huge part of these movies. You got to be attached to the characters, and that's how I felt with Pick and Wally. I really liked the characters. You emotionally feel for them, and I think Monsters Inc. does a really great job of that too. They really play on your emotions with what these characters are going through and the decisions they're having to make. So I think that's a great pick.
Boo running around feeling Mike Wazowski. Like dude, Boo is awesome. She's
Yep. Yep.
adorable. She's amazing. So just every character you're gonna fall in love with, and I don't really think there's anyone annoying. Some of these movies you can be like, man, that character was
Yep,
annoying.
yep.
I don't feel like that in Monsters Inc., and that's a
I,
big
I feel
deal.
I feel the same way. I think that's a great pick for a number five slot.
All right. Well, moving on up the list, number four. Oh, you got something?
So, no, number four, it's funny you picked Monsters Inc. at your number five, and this is going to be, I think, a fun point of where our lists differ, because coming at number four for me is actually in the same universe, but I went with Monsters University for
Oh,
my number four
wow.
slot. Yes,
Monsters University.
yes, and I love this movie. I think it is such a great, precursor to the universe that we live in. I love knowing their origin and all that stuff. And we actually, whenever we have like game nights or stuff with my family or anything like that, we usually throw on like a movie like this. We'll throw on a Pixar movie. I think the last game night we had, we actually put the Mario movie on just as like background noise. Um, and this was the one that we did the time before the Mario movie, and I caught myself watching the movie way more than playing the games that I was supposed to be focusing on, because I just love it so much. I think it is so fun. And it's one of those things, I think Monsters Inc. is really good, but something about Monsters University just pulls it out a little bit better in my mind. So that's why I went with it at number
Oh
four.
man. Okay. That's funny. Because it Monsters University didn't make my top 12.
See, that's not surprising to me because I think we have such differing opinions on this stuff. But man, I don't know. I love the Uzma Kappa. I love that their sign is just okay. Like that stuff to me is so funny. I don't know. It's something about Monsters University. It's just better than Monsters Inc. And if I had to pick between the two, if
Oof.
like I gotta watch one of them, I always pick Monsters
Oh
University.
man. I don't think I would ever pick Monsters University over it unless I just watched Monsters Inc.
And you're not wanting to watch it back to back.
Yeah. Well, I might, yeah. But no. That's a good pick though. I mean, it's a good
I
film.
I knew as
Uh
soon as you said Monsters Inc. for your number five, I was like, oh, he's not gonna like my number four pick.
One of the things I love about Monsters University is the fact that in most of these movies, there's always a success. And one of the cool things about Monsters University is that Mike fails.
Yep.
He fails at being a scarer. He doesn't make it. And that's okay. And I think that's one of the messagings in this that is, so good is that if you go for your dreams and if you don't make it, like it's okay. Like you'll switch up, you'll change up, and that's all right. So like that's one of my favorite things about Monsters University is that aspect is, it's different than everything else because he actually does fail. Like he doesn't succeed. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool because, like you said, even if you don't make like what your ultimate dream is, sometimes there's another avenue that aligns similarly to what you originally wanted to do. I mean, it's exactly what happened to him, So I think it's super cool. Like I said, I don't know why, I just like it better than Monsters Inc. So I knew
Hey.
that was going to be fun. After you said that one at number five, I was like, oh, this is where our list is going to get exciting.
Oh man. Well, we'll see. We'll see how much more. But for my number four, we also have another OG. I don't think I have a sequel on here. But for number four for me, it's Finding Nemo. Um, Finding Nemo holds a dear, special place in my heart, and as a parent, it has only gotten better. I thought it was great when it came out. I thought it was really good. Loved it. Funny and enjoyable, but man, it hits different as a parent because you literally would fight the entire world to get your children back. Like there is nothing you wouldn't do for them. And the story of Finding Nemo is almost like top tier. The only reason it is as low as it is for me is the fun factor of watching it is not as fun. The
Hmm.
story is some of the best we get, but I think the fun factor keeps it at level four because I just don't have as much fun watching it. I don't laugh as much. I don't, I'm not on the, I am on the edge because like there's a bunch of action and stuff, but um, it is a very good, number four Pixar film, and I think on IMDb, I think it gets a lot of praise. Because I think it's right around number like six in their films, for their rankings. But yeah, Finding Nemo for me is number four, and it may should be higher.
Well, you know, I think Finding Nemo is a great movie. Absolutely love it. I think it's another one of those movies you can kind of catch yourself um repeating some of the sayings, right? I just found out a few months ago we were watching it, and I had never noticed that when Nemo is in the dentist's office and he's like going through his initiation, they go to Camp Wanahakalugi. I had never picked
Yeah.
up like what that was literally until then. And I feel like that's one of those movies. There's a lot of little things in there that you might not catch on until, years after watching it. Like if you're not really paying attention for a certain scene, you might miss some of that stuff. And I really like when movies have a lot of that stuff in them.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch, but it's also not like sometimes you can put something in an innuendo that's dirty and that's like, oh man, like I can't
Yeah,
believe you got that in there, but that's
yeah,
not the case with this
no.
one that I'm aware of. So it is fun to catch those Wanahaka loogies and shark bait uaha, like yeah,
Yeah,
like
stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've said that, like yeah, definitely a very quotable film, and I catch myself making comments about it all the time now, especially since I've probably watched Finding Nemo, maybe
A
20
countless number.
times, maybe 20 times in the last year.
Yeah, yeah. It's awesome movie for kids. Like you said, there's no little sayings in there. At least, like you said, to our knowledge, that you're like, I don't know how that made the final cut. Because sometimes these movies do put like a little saying in there that only adults would understand. But I don't know that in that movie, so I think that's awesome. When you can really just throw it on and let your kids just watch it, and you don't have to worry about what they're seeing.
Now, it was funny because we were with a group of parents and they were talking about Finding Nemo. Like their kid had just watched Finding Nemo and they're like, "Oh yeah, like we fast forwarded through the barracuda attack and the shark attack. It was just a little too scary for them." And I'm like she's already been like they were the same age and like she had been watching it for a year and I was like completely unshielded and I was like, well,
I can see where you're coming from.
I get it, but
Yeah,
yeah, they're fish, so.
yeah. They're fish. I love that. That's your reasoning behind it being okay. I
Yeah,
love mass murder's okay as long as you're fish.
that's right. Animal violence is fine.
Oh my gosh, that's good. That's great. Well, moving on from, I'll go ahead and say this is going to disappoint you, and I think it's funny. You said our
Oh,
lists were going to be different.
If it's Finding
No,
Dory,
no. But Finding Nemo is not in my top 5.
okay.
So I think I really am already loving that our lists are so different. We haven't had a movie that's the same yet, and I don't know that we're going to. Now, there's 2 on here that I could see us having, but with you saying you don't have any sequels, that also eliminated another movie off of my list that I know you're not going to have. But we're not quite there yet, because coming in at number 3 for me is Cars. I don't know why. I remember going to where we live, and Zane knows this because where we live, we both grew up in the same area. We have a drive-in theater near where we live, and I went to the drive-in theater and watched Cars for the first time, and ever since then, it's just been one of those core memories I have where I look back on that, I'm like, that was such a fun movie to see at a drive-in movie theater. I don't know why I always correlate those things together. I guess because I was in a car, but
Oh, that's
such
awesome.
it's such a fun memory. And I think it's just genuinely a really good movie. I think it's just so fun. You talked about voice acting in earlier today. I think it's got a really great cast for the characters they were trying to portray. Like, I can't picture anybody else playing any of those characters, now that we've gotten them the way that we have. So that's number 3 for me is Cars.
Wow. Okay. Cars coming in at number 3. I actually predicted that this one would be on your list since it was number 1.
Yep, on
For
my
your
car
car
movies.
movie. So I couldn't imagine that it was your favorite car movie and didn't make top 5
Right,
Pixar.
right.
So I did kind of see that one coming, but yeah, man, nothing wrong with Cars. Great pick.
Yep, I love it. And I think, if you talk about series overall, it's all the other movies in the Cars franchise are pretty good as well. I think the one I like the least is probably the second one.
Yeah,
Because it kind of gets a little random there, but the most recent one is fantastic. Like, I
yeah,
love the
Cars
most
3.
recent. Yeah, it's so good. So, I just like the whole series. Like I said, with the exception of 2, I think 2 gets a little bit out there. But still, I love it, and you said it right. It was my number 1 car movie, so there's no way it wasn't going to make my top 5 Pixar list.
I think the funny thing about Cars 3 is it's very much a parent movie,
Yeah.
instead of a kid movie. And I think that may hurt it for a lot of people, is that it's just not as fun as some of the others. Um, and that's okay. But this is yeah, that I think you picked the best one in this series for sure. Yeah, Cars 2 is a letdown for a lot of people. But Cars 1 still all-time classic. But
Well, and I think the cool thing about Cars 3 is you said it was kind of like, for an older audience. But I think that's kind of one of the things. I know it can hurt people because you still want it to be kid friendly and use stuff, but it's really cool that like the kids like us that watched it growing up, it's kind of cool that we got to see Cars 3 and kind of what it became. And it kind of feels like tailored to that audience, which is what I really appreciate about it.
which also may be why you liked Monsters University so much, is because you were in college when it came out,
Oh,
or
I bet
going
you, yeah,
to.
because yeah, that I didn't even think about that. That could be another reason why I just really appreciate that movie. So maybe we're
Yeah.
figuring out a trend here. Maybe I have recency bias.
Recency and experience bias,
Yes.
which, hey, everyone has some of that. But for number three, Cars is not my number three. I actually have Up. Um,
Ooh, good one. Good one.
Up, I think, deserves to be on this list, top five, for the first 10 minutes alone. I think it has the best intro of any Pixar film, maybe film, with that love story between him and his Ellie. Um, man, such an incredible film, and the what I would say is the absolute best heartfelt message in any of Pixar is Up. Him finding out at the end that, man, the actual journey was his life with his wife, like, and that
Yeah,
she
dude.
had the journey of her, man. If
You're
you
gonna make
don't,
me start tearing up on the podcast.
man, if you don't tear up at that moment, that it wasn't, it's not the experiences you have, but it's who you have them with. Man, that is just, man, it's awesome. And
It
it's
is.
such a fun movie. It's hilarious. Doug is, that comedic relief that's amazing. Kevin is absolutely hilarious. And I get an added laugh factor because that's my father's name. So every time they're like Kevin, and it's just funny. I don't know why I get a extra chuckle out of that, but I do. The great twist with his explorer actually being the bad guy, his hero. It's just, man, it's just a fantastic film. And I think I do cry almost every time I watch that intro, because I don't know how you don't. Like, it's just an awesome little experience. And then every time you have someone that you love, the way that you think he feels about his wife, and then imagine losing them, man, that's just tough. Um, and I always put myself in the movie, so it's always a little bit. I could get very emotional during movies because I'm enjoying the journey with them. Not only are they going through it, but I personally am sitting here going through it. So I love Up, and I think it's the best um emotional movie, and I think it's definitely the one that has the best heartfelt message.
I'll go ahead and say Up didn't make my top five. It was actually the movie that I was debating with at my honorable mention with Onward. And I think a lot of that is because Onward is the movie I definitely have most recently watched. I think I watched Onward probably, earlier, probably towards the later in the last year. I haven't watched Up in a very long time. So I bet if I were to rewatch it, maybe then I would probably have put it ahead of Onward, because all the things you touched on are 100% true. That movie is so good. It is definitely the most emotional, probably out of all the Pixar movies. I think the only one you could probably compare it to is Coco. I think Coco's got a lot of that emotion that Up has. But I think Up is way more relatable because, like you said, you can have your Ellie, you can have that stuff, you can have those moments in your everyday life. So I think Up is just a fantastic movie. I absolutely love that movie. It's so good.
Man, it didn't make your list, so I was so interested to see what your top two are, because I think I know one. If I had to guess, I think. Well, actually, I think I know both of them. Um, but let's go ahead and hear number two. I'm gonna write them down and see if I get them right.
Okay, okay. Do you want me to give you a second?
I got him down.
Okay. All right. So coming in at number 2, I'll be a little. I don't know that this one will surprise you or not, but I don't. It might also. But coming in at number 2 for me is the first Incredibles movie. So I'm getting back to those, not the sequels. Getting back to that. I always have liked the Incredibles movie, and I think the second one is really, really good. But I also really kind of wish that we might have never even gotten it. And I know that kind of sounds crazy because I have the first one as my number 2 movie, but I just kind of liked how the movie ended. I really liked how it was like, they've accepted the fact that they're all different, they're all heroes now. I just liked that whole aspect of the movie. But it's kind of cool too because they're superheroes. We love superheroes. I think it's just a fantastic movie. It's probably one of those movies, looking back on it, the one that my number 1 is probably the only movie that I've watched more than The Incredibles on this list. I have watched The Incredibles so many times. Like, I remember we used to have a minivan that had one of those little TVs in the seat, like the little fold-down TVs that you could, like, put a movie in. I watched The Incredibles on that thing so many times. So I absolutely adore this movie. I love the superhero aspect of it. I love the characters. I just love this movie.
Well, it's funny. I got it right.
Did you get number 2 right?
I got number 2 and I got number 1 right. I know number 1 because you said it's a sequel, and I know what it is.
Yeah.
So my number 2 is The Incredibles.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
So we
finally
up on
agreed.
That one. Man, you can't have superhero nerds on a superhero podcast and not have The Incredibles on your top 5 Pixar films. Similar to you on how you had an amazing first experience of Cars, I had an amazing first experience for The Incredibles. So I had to stay at the college that my mom worked at during the summers. And I just like had to sit there and play on the computer or find something to do. And one day, my mom felt bad for me because I was there with her, and she actually took me to like the multimedia film professor and asked if he had anything, and he had the newest copy of The Incredibles. It had like just came out, and he had a copy of it.
That's awesome.
I got to watch it on like in the film study room by
That's
myself
so cool.
at the college, and it was just such an awesome experience. I asked him to play it again, so I watched it back to back, right off the rip, and it was just like I was fascinated with it. I love every aspect. I love the family aspect. I love the challenges. I love the added stakes because it is a family. Dealing with being stuck in a job and wanting more and wanting something else. That's a fascinating thing. And you see it as a kid, like you always have these dreams, but you see like everyone around you, like, you don't know any professional basketball players. You don't know any like amazing careers a lot of the times. So, you kind of get to see that, like your parents come home tired from work and they complain about it. And so you kind of experience that as a kid, and then you get to experience it again as an adult. Now maybe, I absolutely love my job and I think it's a lot of fun, but it's nothing compared to being a superhero. And so you can kind of feel that, you can kind of feel like the weight of him, Mr. Incredible, a little bit more. And then their powers are awesome. You got Dash, the speedster, super strength, Elastigirl, and then you get the invisibility with the force fields. It's just, and the Jack, all of them. Edna, what a fun character, just no capes.
You had your bad Mike Wazowski interpretation earlier, so I had to get my bad Edna mode.
There we go. Maybe on one of these Disneys, I'll break out my Mickey Mouse voice. But
I think you might need to do that at the end of this one. That's how we're guys. Just so you know, I'm holding him to it. That's how he's signing off on today's podcast.
You know what? I'll do it. We'll do it, and we'll put it on the Instagram. No, we'll do a full episode in Mickey Mouse voice one time. No one will listen to it. But yeah, Incredibles is incredible. And I could watch it anytime. You said the second one, you wish it didn't happen. I don't feel the same, but it's not close. I don't think it's close. It didn't make my top 12. But this is number 2 for me. I love Incredibles, and it heartfelt message behind it, right? Family matters most. Um, and so it's just, man, it's good. And then also, being cruel to people will come back to bite you. One of the weird things where our protagonist actually has some decisions he made in earlier come back to bite him.
Mhm.
And you kind of get to see that in this as well. Like, also, hey, don't just be mean to people because maybe one day they'll have more power than you. Um, so that's also a good message, but like a secondary message. Yeah. But yeah, Incredibles number two. We lined up on one.
Yep.
So do you want me to announce your number one?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see if we got it right. I'm sure you did.
For number one, Jacob's got Toy Story 2.
100%. The best Pixar franchise by far. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Toy Story is above them all. And I think the second one is just absolutely the best of the bunch. And I love them all. And I told Zane, like I said, I had to pick one of the Toy Story movies because there's definitely a world where my list could have been the first four Toy Story movies and then Incredibles at number 5. I love the Toy Story movies so much. That is what I'm, growing up when I was little guy, those were the movies I absolutely loved. And I'm sure you guys have heard, we've talked about like collecting and stuff on the podcast. I'm a big Funko Pop collector, but my very first thing that I ever collected when I was little was the Toy Story characters. I had all their action figures. I had, the Buzz Lightyear with, all the cool little action things he could do. He could shoot his laser. He had the karate chop action. I had the Woody and pulled his string. I loved all of that stuff. I think Toy Story 2 is the best one. I think, you talked about Up having the best opening to any of the Pixar movies. If you're talking about from an emotional standpoint, sure. But if you're just talking about awesome, cool action, Toy Story 2's opening is fantastic. You don't even know they're playing a video game at first, and you see Buzz is out there, doing Buzz Lightyear things. I absolutely love it. I love, the little Star Wars references with Zurg telling Buzz that he's his father. I just think I love Toy Story. It's one of my favorite movie franchises of all time. If we did a top 5 just straight up movie franchises, Toy Story would 100% be in it. So Toy Story 2 is my number one Pixar movie.
Wow. And we said we weren't going to agree much. That's pretty funny. And we don't, because Toy Story didn't make my list.
I knew you were going to disappoint me, Zane. I knew you weren't going to have a Toy Story in your top 5, and that's terrible. I don't know what kind of life that is to not have a Toy Story in your top 5.
They just don't hold up as much for me. Especially the first one, the second one, it's fine. But I find some of it very annoying. And I just don't enjoy it throughout the entire time, and I just don't find the concept. I actually think my favorite Toy Story is Toy Story 3, which I do enjoy Toy Story. It's not that I don't. It's just not in the top 5. But we do agree with my number one, and that's Cars.
Okay, there we go. I can take that. As disappointed as I am in you with not having a Toy Story in your top 5, I can live with a Cars and an Incredibles top 2 finish.
Yeah, Cars for me, checkered flag all the way. Man, learning characters, learning a lesson, and becoming better people by the end of the film always is going to strike a chord with me. Add in there a little bit of romance with Sally. You got Tomato without the ta. It's just like you got, but it's not overwhelming. The second one, the second Cars is overwhelming. With the kind of stupidity, it's a little convoluted. None of that's there in the Cars one. Cars one is hard work pays off. Skill beats out performance. You can't do it without a team, and then be a good person. And so, man, all the small town vibes, growing up in a one stoplight town kind of kicks as well, kind of seeing it, and hearing my grandpa talk about what cars were like in his day and what they used to do with their cars, and just riding around, how he actually met my grandma, picked her up on the side, during one of these just like riding around town things, said, "Hey, do you want to ride?" And she got in. And that's how they used to do it back in the day. And that's how they met. And that's awesome. So, and you see a little glimpse in that about what Radiator Springs used to be like, and see the glory days, and that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And being a car guy, it strikes a chord with me.
Yeah.
What cars are all about, and then you touched on it, the voice acting. Owen Wilson plays it to perfection.
Hmm.
You got Tomater. That's a voice that like everyone knows. Um, and every time I back up and someone says something, I'm the world's best backwards driver. Every single time, I don't think it was without fail. Um, it's just, man, Cars is phenomenal. And it's got a good soundtrack too.
It
It's got
does.
some really good songs. That first opener where the car singing in the middle, and you think it's just a soundtrack, but you actually see the retro
Yep.
dolled up car in the center. It's so cool. It's got great action. The animation style is fun. It's creative. It's something you think about, but like to actually put it in get the world to come together well, in every aspect. You see something more and more with like even the old cars being the Grand Canyon, the ladybugs being actual bugs, the
Yeah.
tractors. Man, Cars is just a creative genius. Animation is amazing. A beautiful story, heartfelt. And then somebody once had a complaint today because I was talking to my list of them, and they're like, "Why didn't he just win the race?"
That's the whole purpose of the movie.
Right? They're like, he
They
could have
need to
just
go
went.
rewatch Cars.
They're like, he could have won the race, still learned the lesson, and pushed him across the finish line. And I was like, not legally, because in order to get assistance, you have to be a participant in the race. And if you
Yep.
cross the finish line, you would be not a participant. If he would have pushed him across the line, not being a active racer, then the king would not have finished his last race. And so even like little details like that no kid's gonna understand, right?
No,
But
no.
that's really cool. That's a cool little uh point that they make, that hey, self-sacrificing everything he wanted to be the better person, just awesome. And man, I love Cars, and I can watch it anytime. And I think if you take any of these on these list, um I would pick Cars to watch the most. And I think that's maybe, apart from everything else I just said, one of my things is just big watchability, and I think this is the order I would choose to watch these movies.
Well, Cars is so good. I mean, I put it at my number 3, so you're not going to hear me complain. It's my number 1 car movie of all time. I just adore the movie. I talk about it being visually, aesthetically pleasing to me. I love the world. I think it is such a cool world. You touched on the ladybugs being. I love all of that stuff. I think they do such a good job of like immersing yourself in this world of cars. I think it's so cool. It has a lot of quotable sayings, like you were just talking about with Mater and all that stuff. I love the cow tipping scene. I think it's such a great movie. So you're not going to hear any complaints out of me. Just a little disappointment that a Toy Story didn't make your top list.
Well, I'll take a little bit of disappointment. I'm a pretty disappointing guy. So we'll roll with that. I'm fine. I'm fine with being the disappointment. I've been one my entire life. So
Man, this podcast just took a. We were talking about happy Pixar movies, and this one just took a real dark turn.
well, that's all right. That's not dark. That's just reality, and that's okay. But talking about dark turns, your gaming of the
Oh
month kind of
boy,
took a dark turn.
it's over.
It's over. Are you calling it?
I don't think there's any way. I kind of came to the. I don't have like it's just so hard. So what I've kind of come to the conclusion of with how busy things have been, I don't really get to play a whole lot during the week anymore. I get like an hour or two in a week recently. That's just no way you're gonna 100% some of these video games. So I think I'm still gonna try to shoot for 12 by the end of the year. I think once we get moved and some things start to settle down, I'll have some more time and stuff like that. But I'm also gonna stop biting off things bigger than I can chew. The Fallout series is huge. Though I just picked Fallout 3 to 100%, still a really long game. I still like 50, 60 hours to get the platinum or all the achievements in that game. So I think I'm going to try to step back and try to find some smaller, 8 or 10 hour games that I could get all the achievements or the trophies in. I think if I start doing something like that, that's something I could, if I have 30, 40 minutes any time, free time like that, I think that's how I'm going to start to attack these games. Because, man, earlier in this year, I got off to a great start. Then I started having PC issues, and then I started having no time. So yeah, I think we're going to start doing some smaller games. I don't know that I'm going to get one done a month, but if I start doing some of those smaller games, I might be able to catch up, with just playing, 8 hours a month or something like that.
Now, the boys have been hounding me, and so I gotta ask on air, when are you hopping on for AoE? Now, with the Platinum Gaming kind of in the scrap bag, it seems
Yep.
like prime time maybe to not choose some of these 10 or 12-hour games, but join an awesome community with Age of Empires and give it a try.
So I'm still definitely interested in trying the game. Again, it's just finding an evening that you guys are all on and I am free. So I'll go ahead and say, let me know when you guys have a free evening and you guys are planning to play, and I'll try to set aside some time if I'm not busy that day, and I'll hop on and let you guys roll all over me because I know I'm going to be terrible. Um, but yeah, let me know an evening when, and I will try my best to get on so we can get some gaming in again, because it's been a while since we've got to play any games together. We really just do the podcast now that we've both kind of stopped playing Apex and stuff. So
Yeah, well, I still play Apex whenever someone invites me. So, but the AoE boys play every night. I don't, but they
well,
do.
you let me know when
So
you're gonna be on.
okay, gotcha. Yeah. But okay, good. They definitely wanted to know. But with that out of the way, and seeing your gaming shambles, we have something that's not shambles, and we have 5 interesting points of news that I wanted to kind of run through here real quick, and just kind of get your feeling for. And
Mhm.
the first thing is that Chris Pratt was interviewed, and they asked him. They said, "Hey, now that Guardians is over and you don't have to play Star Lord anymore, would you rather go back to that character, or would you be in James Gunn's DC universe?" And he said, "Well, I don't see why it couldn't be both." And then he said, "Actually, it's both. It's 100% both." So first off, what's your reaction to that news? And then second off, what do you want to see him portray in DC?
All right, so I did not see this interview, but you're way more well versed on DC than I am. So a lot of DC stuff for me, I just know really about, probably Batman is the one that I have put the most effort and thought into, and learning the character and reading some of the comics and stuff like that. A lot of the other DC stuff I'm not super familiar with. So starting off first, I definitely think he's still going to be in Marvel. There's no way he is not going to continue to play Star Lord. I think he's actually going to have a big role in the future of Marvel. I think he's going to kind of have, I think he's going to continue to play a similar role as we saw in like Infinity War and Endgame. I think he's going to be that kind of character that's going to bridge the gap for some of these universes when we get to Secret Wars and stuff like that. So I think he's still, obviously, he's going to be back as Star-Lord. But based off of what you have told me about a character like Booster Gold, I kind of
Oh
could
man.
see Chris Pratt playing that character to perfection. And I've done a little bit of research since you've talked about him so much and how excited you are about him potentially being in this new DC universe. I think Chris Pratt kind of fits that mold really well.
Dude, that's actually who I was gonna say. I really do think he would fit that really good. Now there are some fan castings of Glenn Powell running around for Booster Gold, which I also think would fit that really well. Um just with personalities, but yes, I think Chris Pratt would be a very good Booster Gold. And since he said 100% yes, I'm guessing they already know what character he's going to be playing.
I didn't get to that. I think so too. I should have mentioned that too. I think he is for sure going to be in both universes. Him and James Gunn are so close. Um, I think they have a really good friendship and a really good bond. There's no doubt in my mind that they're both, that they're working on something together for the DC universe, which is really exciting for me because if he is getting an actor of that caliber, that's good things for the DC universe.
Oh yeah, and I think he's only going to have great actors sign on for these roles. Everyone I think has faith in James Gunn right now, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
let's
no,
hope it's well warranted.
I sure hope so. And we finally got our first look at Superman, which I don't think we've really talked about on
We
the
haven't
podcast.
we have not
So,
talked about it.
what was your take on the first look at our new Superman?
So I am one who really doesn't care about the suit. Um, it's a suit, and that's okay. So I thought the suit looked good. I know a lot of people had several mixed appearance,
Yeah.
feelings about it. I didn't know someone could care so much about texturing on blue, but they do. What I really like was the look of what we were seeing, and it was more intimate, personal Superman. Him putting on his boots, ready to go stop whatever is happening in the background.
Yes,
I thought
yes,
that
you
was
hit it perfectly.
that excites me. That's okay. We're
Yes.
gonna have a little bit different look at Superman, a little bit different take, and the comic book run that he mentioned he was pulling for inspiration. It's uh, very personal in the representation of Superman. It's very intimate, and we get to see a deeper look at the psychological aspects of Superman with him still being amazing. So if he can stay true to that, um, and give us a solid performance that gives us Superman on an emotional level that we can connect to, because that's really the downfall of Superman so far has been no one's been able to get that connection. No one's been, he's indestructible. He can't really relate to us as much.
No.
And so I think if they can really get us to kind of feel for him and maybe even see us in that spot, I think it's going to be a really, really good movie.
I think you said it perfectly. I think there was so much more to that image that we saw than people worrying about a suit, because I feel the same way. I think the suit is kind of, as long as it has the core elements of Superman, which this suit definitely has. It's not like they're changing it completely, right? It's still the colors. It has the S on the chest. It's got all the things you need for Superman. But what I was most excited about is exactly what you talked on: is what's going on in that background, right? That's the exciting stuff. And I think a lot of people need to get off their high horse about worrying about what's going to happen with Superman, because clearly things have not worked out for DC. Something
Yeah.
needs to change. And if people are, if you're so high on what DC was in the past, where were you when they were looking for people supporting them? They had no support. They were not getting the views. They were not getting what they needed to survive. Clearly, they are having to reboot the universe again. So I think this is a great step for DC. I'm excited that we're getting a different take on it. I love what you said about it being a little more personable. It's very personable just in the fact that we're seeing him put his shoes on, right? It's not like he just flashed into his shoes. We're seeing him get ready to gear up for a fight. And that's exciting to me. And I'm super excited that we were potentially getting a new story on Superman and all this stuff. I was very excited with what we saw. I think I told you I liked it, but I'm going to be very skeptical because we haven't gotten the best DC stories in the past. So I'm very excited for this one. It's one of my most anticipated things coming up in the future is this Superman movie. So I'm really hoping it lives up to what this little image. I know we haven't even seen a trailer or anything, but this little image, how much it excites me. I hope that we get something similar when we actually get the movie.
Yeah, and I think it's in good hands.
Yes, I agree.
I have no doubt it's gonna be good. It may not be best. I don't think it's gonna break any records, and that's what I worry. I worry that we're so worried about breaking box office records that
Yeah.
they're not gonna let him just tell some good stories and like be reasonable with it. Like, if we can just budget some of these movies better and not try to break every record in the history books, then maybe we'd actually see some successful franchises again.
That's a big thing that's happening right now in the gaming world. I don't know if you saw, but Xbox just shut down another 4 studios, and people are echoing that same sentiment you just had. Not every movie, not every video game you put out is going to break Call of Duty records, right? It's just not going to happen. You need to set expectations for what you want from it, and then you need to budget accordingly, right? No, this Superman movie is not going to be bigger than Endgame. It's not going to be bigger than Infinity War, but it can definitely be as big as something like, you know, maybe the first Iron Man movie. That's more of a reasonable expectation because Superman does have a very big following. He does have a very big fan base. So set your expectations to an achievable level, and don't try to be the big fish in the pond, when you first got put in there.
Yeah, and I agree. It just Somebody said it today. My friend, he said, records are records for a reason, and we don't
Yep.
need to like. There's a reason it's a record because it's unusual. So maybe we should get back to understanding that. But something that is going to have a record, whether it's one that we
I think
want
I
to
know where you're
hold or
going with this
not,
one.
it's Agatha.
Yeah.
Agatha is going to break the record for the amount of times it changes its title name. Um, Agatha got released a picture today, whether it was new on purpose. But Agatha, House of Harkness, is now Agatha, the Lion Witch, and the Great Wardrobe. What is going
Yeah.
on, Jacob?
Well, I told you my theory with this. I thought after I think how many do you have a number of how many name changes we've gone
This
through
is the
already?
fourth one.
Okay, this is number 4. I thought after the last one, when we got House of Harkness, was that because that was the previous one, right? Before
Yep.
this one today. I thought this theory started whenever it changed for the third time, and I gotta think that this is some sort of story point that's gonna get played on in the show. There is no way that anyone in their right mind, if you're trying to build hype for something, why are you gonna change the name 4 times? That's just gonna get confusing. People are not even gonna want to watch it anymore because they don't even know what the name of the show is. So this has got to have some sort of story implication. And I think today, especially my theory became even more evident in my mind because this name makes absolutely zero sense. So
Well,
I'm
and they
hoping,
ripped it back.
yes, I'm thinking it's going to change names again. I do not think this is the final name for this show. I think it's got one more name change that it's finally going to stick with, and I think it's going to actually be a story point in the show.
Well, I think they actually did pull it back that this one didn't stick. Marvel
Okay.
accidentally released this maybe too early. Maybe they were expecting to drop a trailer and this at the same time, um, and then they pulled it back. So, but yeah, so it was Agatha, House of Harkness, then it was Coven of Chaos, then it was Darkhold Diaries, and now it's the Lion Witch and the Great Wardrobe.
Yeah.
Um, which I can kind of see the Lion Witch. Agatha lied a bunch, and then
Yeah.
the Great Wardrobe is plain dress up. The 1950s, the 1960s, like going through the sitcoms, like. So I can kind of see how that was maybe playing into her role of having to be a masquerade, playing these different parts. But I don't know where they're going with the
Yeah.
story. I don't know why we get this spinoff. But anyway, yeah, I see breaking records is something that definitely I don't want to be known for changing names. It just seems wish-washy. But hey, maybe they will.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And like I said, I think there's no way that you change the names this many times and it actually gets out to the public this many times. Sure, if maybe they hadn't even announced the show, I bet some of these movies and stuff go through so many name changes we have no idea about. But the fact that this has been announced and then name changed 4 times now, there's got to be a reason for it. And I hope that's the case. I hope that they're just not that indecisive, because that does not bode well for the show if that's the case.
No, it does not. And Marvel loves hiding its names. Endgame,
Yes.
it took forever. Spider-Man No Way Home. They loved how that one got released. On a whiteboard while they walked by. We got 4 names released before we got Spider-Man No Way Home confirmed. Tom Holland, Zendaya, and I forget his name, but they all posted a different name on Instagram. So they love playing these little games. So I'm curious. I think you're right. I think this is going to have some play in the show on it. But anyway,
My
so
my my current theory is I think every episode or every name change that because I assume this is probably only going to be 6 episodes, 6 to 8 episodes. I don't know if they've confirmed that, and if they have, you can let me know. I think every name that they have changed so far is the name of each episode. I think the
okay.
first episode is going to be whatever the first one was. Was it Darkhold Diaries was the very first name that they had for it, or was it House of Harkness? Yeah, so House of Harkness is going to be episode 1. That's my theory. They're just giving us all the titles of each episode right now.
Okay.
So I could see this name changing a couple more times. But we'll see. We'll see. It's definitely something fun to speculate on.
Yeah. And then we did get a little touch of Lord of the Rings news.
Yes.
Something that I'm super excited for is we're getting the Rings of Power trailer tomorrow for season 2. which is going to be an awesome drop. And then what I wanted to talk about just briefly was we got a new live action, The Search for Gollum.
Hmm.
Peter Jackson is returning. How do you feel about this?
Well, what that last sentence you just said is all I needed to hear about this. I think with him returning, I think the movie is going to have some structure to it. I think he did a phenomenal job with the first three movies. So there's nobody else I'd rather have their hands on this than him. And it's also exciting because Andy Serkis is apparently going to be coming back and being a pretty, prevalent role.
He's
In
directing.
this, he's directing it. So I think this movie has a lot of potential. The only thing I'm worried about is I was actually listening to another podcast today, and they were talking about this news, and they said, if you look at Warner Brothers, there are three big properties that you could argue is The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and I'm drawing a blank on what the other one is. But they're all things that have, that are currently still have a life cycle. There's still stuff that's being talked about. Their concern is, are they just trying to turn Lord of the Rings into a cash grab? They're just using the IP for the IP's sake. And that's definitely something you do have to be weary of. Obviously, they need to make money off of this thing that they have. So I hope that the story actually does make sense, and I hope it's not just something they're putting out just so they can say they put out a Lord of the Rings movie. But like you said, it does have Peter Jackson involved, Andy Serkis is involved. That's all I needed to hear to be excited about it. So I really hope it does turn out to be something good.
So I was not a fan of The Hobbit. And because I was not a fan of the Hobbit series, this does not give me great hope. Because Peter Jackson also worked on those. He directed
Yeah.
those.
Hmm.
He was the screenwriter for them. So The Hobbit was a cash grab, and that's all it was. And the reason is because it was one book shorter than any of the other books, and it got turned into 3 movies. That is a cash grab. If they would have made one movie, a full concise story, then I think we could have, or even one movie that was part 1 and part 2. The Hobbit didn't need to be 3 movies. And so I'm worried that in The Search for Gollum, I don't know anything about The Search for Gollum. I don't know what book it's pulling from. I don't know what time it's set in, after, before. Well, it can't be after he fell into the lava. Before.
Or so we think.
Well, we definitely saw him fall into the lava.
You're speaking on exactly what I'm worried about. Them doing something crazy. Oh, he had the ring when he fell into the lava, so he was able to live. That's the stuff I'm worried about. So it is different though for me. You did speak on. I love the Hobbit movies. I really do like them. I do agree that they can be a little drawn out because, like you said, it is the shortest book of them all, and it has 3 movies. They definitely could have done 2 movies. I think would have been plenty, but I still really do like all of them. I love the Hobbit movies, so that's probably one reason why I'm probably I would say a good bit more excited than you probably are, because you do have a little bit of that sour taste in your mouth, whereas me, I'm just very excited for it because I've liked all of that stuff so far.
Which is hilarious because I love Rings of Power and you are not a fan
Yeah.
because
And
I'm not a Tolkien aficionado, and you love all of the Tolkien
yeah.
lore and everything. So
Well, and I'm excited for this next season of the Rings of Power. My biggest complaint with the first season was I felt like the episodes were too long. There was so much stuff that I felt could have been left out of those episodes, but when they were actually doing some good stuff, it was really good. And it was probably it's probably still to this day, is by far the best looking show I've ever seen. I mean, they did a phenomenal job with the production quality of that show. But I'm very excited for season 2. I think anytime Lord of the Rings is attached to something, I'm very excited for it because I just love that IP.
yeah, I get it. Because I absolutely adored it.
Yeah.
Clearly. But we'll see. I think this trailer is going to be fun. I think we're going to get a good look at it. And I'm excited to talk about it. We may even don't hold us to this, but we may do a little trailer reaction to this one, and put a little, like a little trailer podcast, just reaction to it. But anyway, if we don't do it on this one, that is something that we want to start doing, to kind of get our reactions to some of this stuff out quicker,
Yeah,
so you don't have to wait a week to hear what we thought about it. But last, I'm going to issue a challenge on the podcast here. Jacob, will you commit to watching X-Men 97 to being caught up so that we can talk about the season in its entirety next week.
Oh, for sure. I said at the beginning of this episode, I'm going to catch up. I promise you guys I'll catch up to make sure that I'm ready for the season finale. Because I think at the time of recording this, but it comes out in 2 days. It's on Wednesday.
Yep, comes out Wednesday.
Yeah, so when you guys are watching this the day we upload it, it'll be 1 day away from the finale. So I'll 100% be caught up. I'll make time for it. So yeah, 100%. You guys have my word. We will be able to break down the entirety because we haven't really got to talk about it.
Nope.
The whole season at all. We talked about like the first episode. So I'll 100% be ready for the finale for sure.
Man, I've been itching to talk about it because I'm super pumped about this finale. I just started to see some of that buzz online, and when I caught up, I was starting to actually get to read some of the comments, and I think the entire community is behind the show, and that's really exciting. I don't know how, it's really kind of hard to gauge how much of the community is in it, because, when you speak loud, it's easy to be heard on Twitter, for a small group of people to feel like it's a movement. But we'll see. I really have been enjoying this, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it and see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm excited because, like I said, I feel the same way. All I've heard is good things. You've also reiterated those good things, and you're someone I can actually trust rather than these Twitter goblins. So I'm excited to catch up for this one for sure.
And are you gonna hold me to that sign off?
Oh, 100%, guys. He's ready. I hope you guys got your ears ready because Mickey Mouse has entered the studio.
Man, we're gonna lose some subscribers here, but
no, this is gonna be our break. This is gonna be our big break.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to the Weekly Fix, and we'll catch you next time. All right. That's so bad. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
That was fantastic. Oh man, yep. I think that's gonna be our new sign off forever.
Yeah, well, you're gonna screen grab that one and just put it on the Twitter. But anyway, like our Twitter, follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, send us some messages, tell us how mad you are about our Pixar rankings, about our hot takes on the news dropping, and how terrible that voice was. So we appreciate you guys tuning in, sticking with us. This has been a fun one for us. If you guys want more of these ranking type podcasts, let us know. If you're enjoying them, what you want ranked, if there's any other series or franchises that you're like, man, I'd like to hear what your ranking of these franchises are. Jacob, he said his, Toy Story is going to be any franchise. He's gonna throw that sucker in there.
Yep.
So if you want to hear the rest of his, I pretty much can name them for you. It's like Star Wars, Fast and the Furious, Marvel, Toy Story.
I knew you were going to say Fast and Furious.
But we have fun, and I hope you guys are having fun too, and we'll catch you in the next one. Weekly Fix.